This video is made possible by Hey there! Welcome back to a new episode of Tutorial Tuesday about the remix. In this season I talk about my remix of Zomboy's Here to Stay featuring Lady Chan, which has now been released as a free download on my SoundCloud profile. To go there and download the track, click the link in the description below. Last week I showed you the last part of the intro, and today I'll continue with the first build-up section of this track. First I'll play the build-up so you can hear how it sounds. Let's get started. So, what is in this build-up? The first thing I want to show you is what I did to the original vocal track to give us more of a build-up feeling. I have chopped the vocal in the build-up section, as you can see here. This is how I did it. I copied over these first couple of bars and then repeated that process with shorter parts of that clip until the end of the build-up. This creates the stuttering effect in the vocal, but at the end I kept the last part of the vocal the same as the original, because that part just works so well for the transition between the build-up and the main drop. So on its own, the vocal part sounds like this.
Me and my soldier, them here to stay. We're here to stay. Me and my soldier, them here to stay. Come on!
So that's about it for the vocal. You can see there's no automation at all during this part of the track. So then we move on to the drum section, which is a little bit more interesting than the vocal section. So the first thing about the drums to talk about is the kick drum. You can see there is some automation going on both the volume and filter cutoff. So after that first single kick drum, I dropped the volume back down to 0 dB, after which I slowly start to bring it back in towards the end of the build-up. This helps to make the build-up pick up speed and tension towards the part where everything comes together. Combine that with the kick drum loop I made for the second half of the build-up, and you really start to feel you're drawing closer to that climax that we call the main drop. So on the drums group, I've also added some high-pass filtering, which basically takes out all of the low bass frequencies when we draw closer to the main drop. This helps to make the main drop much heavier, since we first take out all the bass, and then we drop it back in when the drop hits. Finally, you can see that the high-pass automation on the fast kick drums stop one bar before the drop, leading into a single snare drum hit, which is not high-passed. Sometimes placing a snare right before the drop can help to make the transition flow much better, like in this track. So the next part of the drum section is this snare drum loop I created, which is only heard during the build-up sections of this track. This snare gives the build-up a little bit more original character than, for instance, a simple kick drum loop. Also, both this snare and the kick drum channel work together to give the build-up a nice sense of rhythm. So without any effects, the snare would sound like this. Still not that bad, but as you can hear, it contained quite some low frequencies. So I took those out with an EQ8. And I also boosted the high frequencies a little to make this snare punch through the mix. After that, I added some compression. mostly to make the snare itself a bit more snappy and shorter, since I found that the snare's tail was quite loud. Last but not least, you can also see I have a small volume automation on the snare roll too. But not that much though. It's only 3 to 4 dB, just enough to make it that tiny bit louder, even when most listeners probably won't even hear it. It's all these small little automations on all these separate elements in a track that eventually, when they've been stacked up, make the final track so much better. Try to remember that when making music and you'll improve on automation much faster. Oh yeah, before I forget, if you combine those automations with small variation in the drum hits, you can make it even more interesting. Note that I've added in more quieter notes to the snare roll when we draw closer towards the drop. These quieter notes are also called ghost notes, and they work very well to increase the tension in your build-ups, but can also be used to spice up the main drum part. I introduced the ghost hits on the last part of the build-up, and I've made their volume increase so it really feels like something is going to happen. So that finally leads us into this small little fill loop I've used right before the drop. This makes the drop even more heavy than before, since it works like a lead-in for the drop. Without it, the drop would actually sound a bit more out of place and abrupt. So it's just a part of a loop I used. And this is the full loop. On the loop is just some EQ to get rid of the low frequencies a bit, and a bit of saturation to bring the volume up and make it a tiny bit louder. So that's it for the drums. Together they sound like this. See how that snare and fill loop really work for that last part of the build-up? Next, there is no percussion during the build-up at all, since the build-up already sounded full enough, otherwise it would become too busy, and that will result in a main drop that sounds weaker, which we don't want, right? So on to the synths. As you could hear, the chords have that low-pass filter on it, which closes during the build-up, which actually makes them softer and quieter. So why would I do that in a build-up where we want to build extra tension? I'll get to that later on. First, I need to show you that I've done the same thing on both the piano loop and the horn loop, closing the low-pass filter the more we draw closer to the main drop. So why did I do it? Well, the fact that these instruments lose their upper harmonics and get quieter doesn't mean the build-up will get less intense, since the space that becomes available in the frequency spectrum will be filled up by other sounds like the drums, which become busier, and the effect sounds I'll talk about now. So these effects are just some sounds coming straight from various sample packs, so I won't go too much into detail about that now. But you can see I've used 1 down sweep sample and 3 up sweep samples. And when they are stacked up, they create the higher frequencies that we filter out on the synths and real instrument loops. So when the effects, synth chords, the piano and the horns are stacked up, it sounds like this. So I felt that even with the drums and all these other stuff stacked up, the buildup was still lacking a bit of higher frequencies, and I could have solved that by making the low pass filters close a little bit more up in the frequency spectrum, leaving some more high frequencies in there. But instead, I've added another sound to the buildup. So I've added a small bass sound that I've chopped from the couple of bass loops that were provided in the remix pack. I've then added the high pass filter and the volume automation to it, so it gradually comes in during the buildup while the chords, piano and horns are being low passed. This made the buildup as solid as it could be, and it was just what it needed.
Me and my soldier, them here to stay. We're here to stay. Me and my soldier, them here to stay. We're here to stay. Me and my soldier, them here to stay. Come on.
So that's it for all these separate elements in the buildup of this track. Next week I dive into the first part of the main drop. This was the third in a row of special videos about this remix. For all your questions, click the bottom left to tweet them to @ARTFX Studios and I'll answer them as soon as possible. Or click the bottom right and become a member of the ARTFX website to share your music, give to and receive feedback from other users, and just have a great time on the forum. Subscribe for more tutorials and have a nice day. See ya!